Okay, being 4:30, I call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. And get adoption of the agenda.
So
So move to adopt the agenda.
second.
Or
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The approval of the September 28th, 2021 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Wait for you.
Motion's been made by April and seconded by Fred to approve the September 28th, 2021 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Report on visits with North Water Street businesses.
All righty, so if you read my minutes or my memo, April and I had the opportunity to go down and meet with some of the business owners on North Water Street. We obviously weren't able to catch up with everyone because some property owners or business owners were pretty busy. Some of them weren't open yet, primarily the bars, but we did, like I said, in my memo, talk about the 2024 reconstruction project, continue to promote the building facade improvement program. Some of the takeaways I wrote down, like I talked about in here, parking issue. I mean, obviously, we always hear about parking being a challenge for everyone, whether it's not enough parking. I did hear from, and I can't remember if it was our conversation, April, or a different conversation, but one of the business owners, their employees didn't feel safe parking in some of the parking lots on the north side. Must have been a different conversation. Parking in the parking lots on the north side, just because like at night when it gets dark, the safety feature, it's dark, they don't feel safe. So I mean, that was kind of a takeaway I took, that as we work on the 2024 project, not only the Main Street parking, but also enhance the off-street parking, maybe just to make it more safety conscious, more lighting, maybe some cameras, things like that. So that was kind of interesting. And that kind of alludes to, there was some business owners complaining about other business owners parking on the street. So, I mean, if we can get more of those other business owners to park on side streets or off the Main Street parking, that might help that a little bit. Desire to keep downtown clean. We did have a request to street sweep a little bit more. Talked about the way the city plows. It's funny that one business owner, we were talking about trees, and that the surveys that we did, there was a huge, remember the dot voting, and everybody wanted to see trees. And then I had a business owner say, no, we don't want to see trees, because I'm cleaning up all the time. Well, we need to look at appropriate trees that don't make a mess, that would help out. And then I thought about more city related merchandise, gift shop items, to promote New London shirts, mugs, things like that. So it was good to catch up. We went into several buildings that I've never been in before, like the boutique, never been in there before. So it's kind of cool that April drove me in there, and my wife's been in there, but I've never been in there. So it was good. I don't know, April, if you got any other takeaways about that?
I think it was a productive day. I felt it was very positive. I think business owners just like to be heard and informed. So I thought it was a good conversation.
Yep. And we'll continue to look at a time. I don't know if we'll get to this year yet for Pearl Street, but if we get a nice day sometime, maybe we'll try to do that as well. But just the first attempt to try to, at least on my end, to try to catch up with and touch base with business owners and go from there. So just a report more than anything.
All right, thank you, Chad and April. Okay, on to 5, report on WEDC Main Street First Impression Workshop in Waiwega.
So I did mention it at the last meeting briefly, but I do have the report now from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Main Street First Impression Workshop that I attended in Waiwega. And I'll kind of find that information on the screen here. But it was a pretty good workshop. Again, collaborating with other economic, development professionals from other cities. There were different Main Street impression workshops across the state. It sounds like this one was one of the most heavily attended. It was like a dozen people, 10 to 12 people. But they said some of the other ones were getting 4 people or 3 people. So this one was a little bit more interactive, which was kind of nice. And basically all we did was they gave us they gave us questions in advance to answer about the host community. So our homework was to go online and find out what type of online presence they have marketing their community based on certain criteria. So we had to do that homework in advance, and we brought that information and suggestions back to Waiwega. And then they basically let us loose, and we walked up and down Main Street, collecting information, talking to business owners, getting ideas. And if you look in your packets, I do have some pictures from the program itself. I'll share my screen here so Steve can watch what see what we're looking at. So some of the picture takeaways that people took, probably most of you are familiar. There's this X that goes to the highway over there.
Mhm.
One of the interesting things, I was collaborating and talking with somebody from Little Chute, and he was kind of my partner for the day. We were walking up and down. One of the interesting things we determined, closer to this corner, we couldn't talk to each other in that corner. There was so much truck traffic. It was dump truck, semi, one after another, that it was so loud to talk in the downtown, which that's one thing that we don't have, that we have that much truck traffic, making that much noise. So it was interesting just experiencing that, because we had to yell at each other for quite a bit of the conversation because they had so much truck traffic. So I guess one of the benefit for us that we don't have that situation, but some really cool architecture they talked about and enhancing the downtown in Waiwega. They talked about pride of ownership, some of these nearby houses, just upkept well, and with landscaping and things. One of the things I didn't realize, and the professionals pointed out, there's a lot of alleys in Waiwega in between buildings to get to walk to the back parking areas. And they felt like these were hidden little gems that, either murals or something street, seating for takeout and stuff like that, that people could use these as public, enhancement areas. So that was kind of interesting. We don't really have too many of those type of situations here, but they have quite a few, actually. It was kind of interesting. Architectural wise, diamonds in the rough. They talked about different buildings that, if you find the right developer to kind of maybe spruce them up a little bit. They talked about this one on the left, in that I believe that was the one that someone owns that, and it has just been sitting on it, and they can't even get a hold of the person. They can't even ask them to either sell it or do something. It's just sitting vacant for years and years and years, and they can't even get a hold of the person. They're paying their taxes fine, so it's there, but it's kind of got a cool architecture that they like to see something done with it, but whoever owns it just doesn't do anything with it. Some other different potentials for enhancements. Some traditional old downtown looking buildings where you got the, maybe nobody knows what's underneath. So, on some of these upper facade buildings, what's underneath? Is there some cool old facade that can be renovated? But obviously someone just slapped on some vinyl siding and, try to cover up maybe whatever the problem was underneath it. And then just the problem with, signage. I mean, if you really look at this building here, it's got some really cool architectural, layout and stuff like that, but then it's got the sign and then a sign slapped on top of it. So, to try to encourage, something to, enhance your downtown atmosphere. Obviously the cheese store, I hope everybody kind of knows what the cheese store, has in their downtown. They do have bump outs in their downtown. They must have renovated that in the last 8 or 10 years, their Main Street. So they did have some bump outs. One of the things that we noticed as outsiders, they must have did a bunch of tree plantings, but they haven't kept up with it very well. And they had some disease come through and kill off a bunch of trees. So a bunch of the trees were just cut down, and you see stumps, halfway down, up and down the street. So that obviously was a deterrent, because it's like, well, you got all these stumps laying around in your downtown, which wasn't very attractive. And then like a sign like this, you've got flags that all the professionals were like, we do not allow those in the right of way, because that's technically on the public side of things, and they don't allow, like a flag like that in the right of way. And then you can kind of see here, there's a dry erase board that's kind of stuck out in the middle of the street. And it's covering over some of the cool architecture that they have, in their bump outs to the downtown. The flowers, they really did a nice job keeping their flowers up to speed, but then they have some of these things going on. So a suggestion was to try to make some consistent type of things to kind of regulate, these type of signs and kind of make sure you're not hiding some of your architecture that you have in the downtown. So just some takeaways. The rest of the information's in that report. So yeah, just kind of a cool little thing. I did suggest from the host person from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, to give my business card and said, if you're interested in a host city next year, put us on the list. We've got, our project in 2024. It'd be awesome to bring in professionals across the state with different ideas to kind of, critique our downtown and give us some ideas and go from there. So don't know if that's going to happen, but I did offer New London to be a host city next year for this first impressions workshop. That's it. Any questions on that?
All right, thank you, Chad. Discussion on an ideal for business speakers.
Yeah, so Elena contacted me and had an idea about getting a specific speaker in town that you guys must have had him at the high school for a speaking engagement. Is that-
He wasn't at the high school. We did an event with DECA called The Pitch. So we went over to
Crystal Falls.
Crystal Falls, thank you. And he was kind of the guy who had that event put together, and he had a speaking moment, but he still led the whole activity where we, all teenagers, we all created different business ideas and then pitched them to the group. And then it was like a competition, but it was a whole day mainly about learning how to create your own business. So it was a really cool thing for him to talk to the young entrepreneurs, but I contacted him and we had a phone call a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that he talks not only to the younger kids, but he talks a lot to just business owners in general, and talks about how to kind of evolve businesses and change to how things are going now. And it's hard for me to reciprocate everything that he said, but he basically said that he would come in. I think he can make it to next month's if we wanted to invite him to kind of pitch an idea of giving a presentation. It would be like us hiring him to speak to business owners, and he could have just an event with the different business owners in New London. And we were kind of talking about how that would get paid for, whether we would pay for him to do that or if business owners would pay to go see him, which could just be something that we would discuss. But it seemed just like a fun opportunity. He's worked with New London before with the DECA and the pitch and everything. I don't know what else to add to that, but he seemed really excited. He was fun to talk to, so I think he'd be fun to bring in.
So instead of, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to coin this on the agenda. So instead of pitching it just for this specific guy, about, I kind of opened it up to kind of maybe just do a general discussion. What, like some of the business owners for sure, do you guys feel that would be something that would be attractive for businesses in town to do like a regular speaking engagement? What topics you think people would be interested in? Obviously, we've got a wide variety of businesses in town with different needs and different, type of things going on. But I guess, what do you guys think? I mean, would businesses be interested in that? Would they be willing to pay for it? Because obviously somebody like this, that's his job. He's a paid speaker, so, there would have to be some type of, funding mechanism behind that. Just kind of throwing it out there as a macro conversation, I guess, first to see if there's any business owners that we have right now, or you guys, would you be interested in something like that? And
I can tell you from a chamber standpoint, we do our quarterly business education series and we partner with the SBDC, and it's something free, and we struggle with participation, just getting business owners. It's free. It's virtual now. They just have to register for a link, and we still struggle to find business owners who have time to participate. I've listened to Steve Bench before. He's incredible. He's an incredible speaker. He does a really great job describing generational differences and how it affects your hiring and employers. I just don't know if business owners would be willing to pay for it.
Kind of throwing it out there, thoughts and,
I kind of on the same basis, as April. It's hard to get participation and then let alone pay for it.
I
It just
think,
seems to be a trend.
I think the concept is really good. I mean, it's kind of like the Carnegie workshops and stuff.
Yeah.
I, as a small business owner, would likely try to attend, my wife or I or both. I think it'd be, I don't know how much the cost would be, but if you could somehow make it into a little bit more than just coming and see the speaker, some kind of social type event, like a chamber banquet where
I actually
there.
invited him to the chamber banquet and he's going to be in Florida that week. So I wanted him to come and speak there.
Yeah, I mean, some kind of event that, you really want to go there. You want to go there to social, like it's kind of like the first banquet after the pandemic kind of let up.
Mhm.
Was like so motivating to go to the chamber banquet. It was like life changing. And it's something you go to for like 20 years, but then when you take it for granted, then you can have it again. And it was so refreshing to have all these other business owners together and then to have like this motivational type speaker up there. I see the whole value of having people together in a place and a speaker like that. Kind of everybody can just take it. I could see maybe larger corporate sponsors or banks maybe sponsoring it, and just a big part of your push, if you could get a guy like that to come, would be to try to get that attendance.
Mhm.
So you might even spend more on trying to get people to come than you would even the speaker that's coming. Or you might have some kind of event pigtailed with it, like
Mhm.
a wine tasting or something like that. But I think that the concept is good. The environment's ripe. The changing times and business owners, new owners, longtime business owners, everybody could benefit from some kind of family meeting like that, I think it's a great idea.
Did Steve provide a rate sheet or how much?
He didn't provide me much, and he said he was gonna send me an email after our phone call, and then he sent me a text a couple days later. He's like, I didn't forget about you, I just haven't, and he still didn't send me the email. So I was actually gonna reach out to him. He's on my to-do list, but he didn't send me that much information.
Even if like a committee like us kind of got on it and you got a couple people that were really think, hey, this could be cool. Okay. Let's start talking about it and working on how we could really make an event like that. I mean, the mayor and I went to an event this summer. It was a cook-off
Yep,
event.
yep.
And if you really planned it, you could probably get that involvement up and you really had a couple people out there. Oh, okay, fundraising committee, hospitality, or invite other communities to it too, not just New London, but we could invite our neighbors, some other people. But I think it's worth keeping on the radar and talking about and exploring the cost, doing something about it.
and just thinking out loud and piggybacking off of that. I mean, as April knows, any type of an event takes a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of work that's got to be, you were just talking about fundraising committee and things like that. And especially like in our end right now, we got so many things and irons in the fire to be planning events like that. It's gonna be tough. And so I just, Elena, throw it out there. Is DECA looking for projects? Is the business classes looking for projects that maybe once or twice a year? Maybe DECA would want to put an event in not only just a speaking event, but a business event. I don't know what would all be included in that, but
I could definitely bring it up to DECA. I don't have like a very much lead position in DECA just because it overlaps with stuff, whatever. But I could definitely bring it up to them. I know that they do a lot of stuff throughout the year.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure what kind of availability they have. They're already really busy with the stuff that they run, but I could definitely ask them because that would be cool since DECA already works with him.
Yep.
Could be easy.
Rebecca or Mrs. Porat's class, she's got a business.
Yeah, she's
Marketing
got a
class.
couple marketing classes. and STEM.
So I don't know, maybe have them collaborate a little bit and see if there's an idea of making it more of an event that's more attractive instead of,
Sure.
I don't know.
I'm gonna try to get him for another banquet too. I definitely want him to come and speak with the business owners. I think it'd be beneficial.
Maybe that's the spot where this happens, you know.
Something that we continue to work forward to one of your events.
Yeah, even if, the chamber's busy enough, but I mean, that is the glue that holds us all
But I
together.
mean, I'd say that's something that the city could help work.
Yeah,
for
we
her,
could,
for the
as a
chamber.
committee, support the
Yeah,
chamber
yeah.
on doing that. Really,
'Cause I like what you said. I mean, you getting the businesses together and promoting it that way.
Yeah, just a general discussion and some ideas.
yeah,
Elaine had a good idea to kind of bring it up, so we thought we just collaborate on it tonight.
great idea.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, updates and reports, business updates, April.
I don't have too much of an update for the committee today. Chad and I think that I was downtown with you and we noticed that the Christopher and DeLeon law office, Mark Christopher is the immigration lawyer. I was just down there in September talking to him when I was setting up for Fall Fest. And when Chad and I walked down there in October, his entire office was completely empty. I got a hold of him and he's vacated that office because he works out of Milwaukee so much that it didn't make sense for him to have an office in New London. He does plan to circle back in spring and hopefully open up another office when he has some more time. I'm working with two business owners in town right now, fairly new business owners in town that are interested in investing in commercial buildings. So I've been sending them some vacant options. So hopefully we see some turnaround there soon. And then I wanted to invite the committee to two ribbon cuttings that we have coming up. Percy's Pro Shop, that's DECA that we were just talking about. They run the Percy's Pro Shop store in New London, in the New London High School. They're gonna have a ribbon cutting November 3rd at 12 o'clock. If you're interested in coming to that, just let me know and I can put you on the invitation list and there's some special instructions on how to get into the school. And then the second is for Northern Belle Boutique. She's located in the former Curves building up by Walmart. She is celebrating her first year in business. And when she first started, she went in there, I think the week before Thanksgiving, and it was crazy. It was hectic. And now that she has a year under her belt, she's really interested in integrating into the community and doing more community events. So if you have some time to stop out and support her, please do so. Her ribbon cutting is November 19th. I just realized I didn't even put the date on here, but it is November 19th at 11:30. I can put that on your calendar invite. If you're interested, just send me an email. And that's all I have. Any questions that I can cover?
That's pretty awesome of her to start that business in the middle of the pandemic and still survive.
It is. And I don't know if you guys know who Brittany is, but she had a little trailer that she would sell clothes out of over at I met her at Bear Lake one day and I absolutely loved her clothes. And she would set up in Manawa quite a bit. And then when she finally came to New London, she said, New London is so much different than where she was previously because they didn't really care what she was doing until she was ready to leave. And she said that she just feels differently and more welcomed into New London. So it's great to hear.
Her clothes are fantastic too. Fall Family Fest, she was down there and we were like $5 or $6 short. My daughter's like, but Dad, call Mom. This person will never be back in New London again. So I'm like, okay, let's go in and talk to the lady and see, And we went in there and she gave us a business card and we're like, New London. So it was kind of a cool place to, and I'm glad that they're in New London.
Yeah, she was rated the #1 boutique in the state And we have that in New London.
Really?
Yes, #1 mobile boutique. And I'm like, that's like a little hidden gem in the entire state.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Christy found it.
She's.
It's a place that a
It'll
guy
hurt
would
your
not
wallet,
even
trust
know
me.
about unless you were work with your wife or your
Right.
daughter. That was really neat.
What is them?
Northern Belle. Yeah, she's, yeah. Yep.
All right, city administrator report.
Yep, so video producer update, like I kind of think I previously talked about, we had 23 overall applications for the video and marketing producer position. Narrowed it down to the top 14. We asked and invited the top 14 for submission of videos to see their talent. We got 7 of them to actually submit their videos. I don't know why we got that much of a decrease, but you know, that narrowed down the field right there for us. We narrowed it down to the top 3, invited those top 3 for interviews. At the last minute, one candidate declined the interview. That person found a different job at the last minute. So we interviewed 2. Both candidates were really cool. So we're bringing both of them back in for a second interview. One of them's coming in tomorrow evening. The second one's coming in Thursday morning. And just, I want them to meet the staff, meet and greet. Let's see how they interact, see how they mesh with staff. Kind of a little bit more of an informal interview setting instead of a, formal question answer type thing. So we just want to kind of get staff's input. I've invited April, obviously, because this person works with the chamber so much, to get her input as well. So got second interviews coming up, and hopefully we can narrow it down to the best candidate and get the videos going again, which is really cool.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious, what do these folks do now? Something similar or the same or what?
The one candidate works for TV station. I'm not going to kind of give you too much, but has worked around for a local TV station. So obviously in video right there.
Yep.
The second candidate is younger, out of school, has a degree, has a lot of experience within the school, but currently working a non-video job as this person's looking for something in their field. If that makes sense.
Good.
So, but both of them have very good talents. Both of them did really good on their interviews. We'll bring them in, kind of get a little bit more. It's hard in a 1-hour interview to really get to know somebody. So we'll bring them in again to kind of have them meet staff and see how they interact and kind of go from there. October 19th, Joint Review Board approved TID number 5. So that TID is set as well. I'm currently in negotiations with the developer on some different aspects of the financial assistance of that project. That's the TID district funding mechanism that we're going back and forth. So once we kind of come to an agreement, then I'll be presenting that to the council for a review of a developers agreement to make sure the council is cool with that. And hopefully we get that figured out so we can have the downtown development. And then tomorrow we're hosting the Wapaka County Economic Development Corporation monthly meeting. The Wapaka County Economic Development Corporation bounces around to different host communities throughout the county in the month, and we're up for this month. So we're hosting tomorrow at Familiar Grounds for lunch. So that's it.
Okay, moving on to review potential agenda items for future meetings.
Bill, we talked about a while ago, you had a friend or a colleague or somebody who was interested in maybe coming in business. Is that person still interested at all?
I can reach out.
Other than that, I don't know, is there anything else that we have that we really want to?
I got a question. The ATV club, I was talking to that Peter, that's part of the ATV club, and he was saying that the Newton Blackmore Trail, he was wondering if they would be open to opening it to ATVs because it goes to Shackton. Shackton is open on streets.
Yep.
I wasn't here for the initial ordinance or whatever, so I don't know the backstory of how the ATV club, petitioned to get the streets open in New London. But he also filled me in on a lot of other things that you can't ride in the wintertime.
Currently, yep.
And he's like, a lot of guys want to take their ice shanties down the river and their UTV. And I was like, well, that makes sense to me. I don't see why. So I don't know if we can maybe have a backstory of how the ordinance was set up and maybe opening it up some more for economic development, because that would bring more Shiocton people to New London, if we can get them on that Newton Blackmore Trail. I don't know if there's a reason why we couldn't, or if, something to look into, if that's, something you guys want to talk about.
So a little history, I believe most of that discussion was Board of Public Works for the ordinance. So that's where that's the committee that kind of worked on the ordinance part of that. And the initial ordinance was kind of more of a trial thing. So it was just kind of a wait and see, try it out and see how it worked out. I think they've contacted you, Mayor, about maybe looking at the winter thing.
The winter and the hours, because some of the
Yes.
businesses lapse or time in that time frame that they can't ride to work either.
So those might be aspects that will probably come up down the road, whether it's this next month or a future meeting for Board of Public Works to review that. The trail itself, when I moved to New London in 2007, there was discussions ramping up for the development of the Newton Blackmore Trail. They just developed that like in 2008, 2009, right in that timeframe. But there was a ton of discussion when I came to town at the county level regarding the use of the trail. So they did have a lot of discussion whether it was going to be multi-uses in ATVs and snowmobiles and horses and aspects like that. In the end, there was a ton of people pro, ton of people against. I mean, the silent sport people don't want the ATVs going flying past them. The ATV people wanted to be on the trail. There was a ton of discussion back at that time. And it came down to that many times the surface of the trail defined a good surface for ATVs and pedestrian traffic like bikes and people walking. The material is not the same because it's got a screening type material right now, and ATVs would just rip that up. So it would have to be a totally different material, which is not really conducive to just regular the pedestrian thing. So there was a lot of discussion back then. It's a county and DNR thing. So we obviously don't regulate that. So to open that all the way up to Shiocton, that'd have to be an Outagamie County thing. I mean, it's not our decision. It's not, once you get outside the city limits, it's not our jurisdiction for that trail use. So the city could open it up to House Road and then they would go nowhere from there, so I know there was a ton of discussion. I remember that at the time, and they decided they were just going to do pedestrian, bikes, horses, and then snowmobiles in the winter. For the ATVs at that time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we open it up within the city has to maintain that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, if once we get this connection piece, that would be our segment of trail, which ATVs would definitely rip up a screening type trail application. So we would have to be putting in a lot more maintenance on that aspect if it was ATV use. But again, they would go to House Road and they would stop because the county doesn't have that available right now. So
Do snowmobiles use it right now?
yes,
So, I mean, they have snowmobile clubs that help maintain the trails. I mean, I'm sure these ATV clubs would be interested in helping maintain the trails too.
but it would be a county thing. So the county would have to open that up.
Yep.
And I don't know if Outagamie County yet, because they put a lot of those restrictions in. I don't know if the roads are open up all the way to like Shiocton, like back roads are open yet. I haven't heard much. Obviously, we know Wapaka County opened up quite a bit, back roads and townships. I don't know if Outagamie County did that yet. So, whether you can get to Shiocton on the back roads, I don't know that answer yet by far.
Because if you could get to House Road, then you could get through Old 54 and you could take a nice back way into Shiocton. But I don't know what Outagamie County's done, but that's a good idea. I mean, even if our portion of it, but they allow horses on it. I know that.
Yep.
On the trail, but
Correct.
I've never been on there. Is there a sign that says what's a picture of a horse or a picture of a snowmobile or something? I imagine there's some description at the beginning or trailhead.
Yeah, it's groomed. So I mean, when it's open, when the snowmobile trails are open, it's on the snowmobile maps and it's a groomed trail.
I know in Seymour, they don't let them on there.
Snowmobile? On
That's
the-
on the Indian reservation too.
Oh, on the Indian reservation would be a whole different
Right.
ballgame.
I just didn't know if that would continue after that or not. Let's try
I
and
don't
look it
know
up
how
right now.
I don't know how they have it set up once it's the reservation. I'm not sure.
I know Hortonville's thinking about it because their administrator asked me today. And I'm like, he's like, so how was that process for New London? And I was like, boy, I don't know which person to give you a name to first. So I was kind of waiting to. It's just a process that
Mhm.
everyone's eventually comes to.
I sent Chad an email from Travel Wisconsin, was that last week? They were celebrating with some ATV UTV Association. They were celebrating that $295 million ATV and UTV riders spent on trips in Wisconsin annually. That's from purchases of vehicles, supplies, to patronizing restaurants and booking overnight lodging. So they do increase tourism. It's a proven fact.
So it's the Duck Creek Trail in Seymour that they're not allowed on. The
Oh.
Seymour, in Seymour, the Newton Blackmore State Trail connects to the Duck Creek Trail.
Mhm.
Snowmobiles are not allowed on that.
Once it hits the reservation.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds right.
I do think Tim brings up a good point about. I'm not sure how Chief Schleter weighed in on it, but maybe probably should look at. I know at nighttime you see them go by and but it's hard to sometimes when the days are getting shorter real quick, 6 minutes a day or whatever. Maybe look at that nighttime, and the winter thing is, well, in the wintertime, I think if you're doing snow removal or if you're I don't know about hauling something with them, but there's different.
I talked with them.
When we started this, it was just to get it passed. And then we're going to revisit all these rules anyway, going forward.
After a year.
Yeah, so I think, it would be tough to get the winter or hours changed already for this year. But it definitely, I have gotten zero complaints about.
The police chief says the same thing,
Oh,
that the complaints are
ATV.
very minimal about ATVs and UTVs.
So I've been talking with the officials of the snowmobile or the ATV UTV program, and they felt the same way as far as they wanted to get it in here and look to opening this up and lessening the restrictions. In conversation, I told them, I said, we did do this and we're going to review it in a year. I did think that we should honor the year, find out how this complete cycle works. Furthermore, talking with Chad, it would be a good idea to start conversations and getting it on the minutes and working towards a resolution for when that year comes up.
And when would be a year?
It was April.
May?
That was the next question because we
It was
did
right
pass
around
it.
March.
We passed it first and then it was when it was active. So that would be,
So yeah, I think we should get it on either Public Works, wherever it needs to go. I think we should get it on soon
I
and
think
start
so.
talking about it now.
Public Works,
yeah, I
yeah.
think we should go back to Public Works.
Yeah.
And we could throw it on the December or March or January agenda right away.
Yeah, we'd talk with that chair and
Yep, Mike,
find that out.
if he wants to go with it. But yeah,
But yeah, I agree.
Mhm. Yep.
And I reminded them, it's a due process. You got to make everybody happy and let's figure it out.
But I also think they have really held up their side of the bargain too.
Yep.
Without having the complaints and stuff. They really shown
Mhm.
the people that were didn't really want it. I think they've proven that they could be
Yeah, if you
a
follow
great
their,
benefit,
if you follow their Facebook page, they're really great at just educating anyone who has
Yes.
questions, what's legal, what's not legal.
And
If
they're quick to
if they
respond.
see someone not doing something correct, them ambassadors are out there
I was
trying to
just
change the
gonna say,
behavior.
since we are talking about them in the state of Wisconsin, they have the most ambassadors in their program. So that's right here in New London. So that's a good thing.
And they had an educational seminar in the Associated Bank parking lot, and it was a large turnout. They were inspecting machines, checking for, just helping people who were looking for advice, whether it was safety and simple questions of, if I'm doing this, do I need it? Do I need a blinker? Do I need a brake light? What do I really need? And they had a large turnout in the parking lot.
I don't know where it was, Manawa or Waiwega or something. They just started a ride and there was over 200 vehicles. That's huge to come through New London. For our businesses, gas stations, everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, absolutely. Good conversation.
Good idea, Tim.
So we'll
Alright.
talk to Mike and put that on a future agenda to kind of
Yeah.
revisit, because we said we're gonna revisit it, like you said.
Do you want me to reach out, like ask Steve if he wants to come in and talk to us next month? Like, are we interested in hearing him at all, or should I? Because I did bring it up to
I
him.
think that's a great possibility.
Okay.
I do. I
We
mean,
can
I
zoom
don't-
them in, so he wouldn't even have to come. I
Yeah.
mean,
Sure, yeah, I can offer
make it
that.
convenient, and a minimum, get a price
Yeah,
idea. You
Okay.
know, is he $200, $2,000? I'd
sure.
be hard. I don't know.
Helps to have prices.
And what he, and the extent of what he offers out of that.
Okay, yeah, I'll let him know.
All right, moving on to public comment.
That's kind of quiet the last couple of meetings, so I'll make up for it this time.
Jeff, can you come up to a mic just so we can,
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind?
I guess.
Thank you. I guess after the last meeting, Mayor Mark and Chad and I talked a little bit about how we can capture that waterfront downtown, and I threw a couple of ideas out there about maybe bars and the restaurants, if they could use that alley at a limited time every day, if we'd close the traffic off there after deliveries and that. Keep looking at Fremont and their main street. They have their storefronts built up there, but they also have a boardwalk or something in the back that they use the front and the back of the stores. We're a little different because we've got deliveries and that going on back there. I don't know if there's a way to possibly build a boardwalk off from that wall back there. I think there's been issues with that wall in the past. Or to put some decks out there if the restaurants wanted to contribute to the cost of that. So you could capture more of that on water. I was talking to Pat Williams today from the Waters. When you go by there in the summertime, that deck is packed all the time when the weather is nice.
Mhm.
So I just wonder if there's not some opportunity there. We just, somehow we got to capture that waterfront. It's a natural resource. It's free, except to be able to use it, we got to figure that out. I got to give Chad, and I think Mark, you said you were with it too, when you went and visited the business owners downtown. I think, I know time is precious, but I think you guys really need to get out and visit with each business owner once a year instead of waiting for them to come to the meetings. And I think if you go in and talk to them, they'll open up more instead of them having to come to a public meeting and complain or give something to it. So great idea. I'm glad you did that. I know the last regime didn't do it, but before that, they did try to get out at least once a year and talk to all the business owners in town. And then Chad, you were talking about the truck traffic in Waiwega. They're in a unique place there because of how all the milk trucks have to get into Agri-Pure. If they go through 5 million gallons of milk a day there, which I know they do, that's 100 loads a day that have to come in. And because of, you can't, as we were sitting here, I saw 2 milk trucks go that way and 1 come this way because they got to use X to get in there. You can't go through Northport. You can't go down Larry Road. You can't go down O because they're all Class B roads. So pick your poison. You either go through a snake trail down there or you have to come off from Highway 10 right through town to get into that. So it's just something to think. They've got Agri-Pure, Star Dairy there. They got a fuel business. I think New London, I don't know how or why we're lacking in attracting any kind of an agricultural business here. I don't know we don't have Saputo anymore. We used to have 2 feed mills. We don't have any, although that industry is all changing. I'll agree with that. Do we have a small engine business here in town anymore that sells snow blowers and lawnmowers?
No,
Tractor Supply. You about the only.
yeah.
But do they
There's a couple
repair them?
guys that do them out of their garage.
Yeah, there's a home business.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean,
No
used to-
brick and mortar.
everybody went to the co-op or something. They all had the snapper dealership and stuff. I don't know why we're losing those smaller businesses. I don't know. I mean, Dale's got one, Clintonville's got a couple, ATV, UTV dealerships, all that. We don't even have a boat dealer anymore, do we, John?
But Tuffy
Tuffy
boat.
boats.
Boats, we have the marine.
So they buy and sell out of that, or they sell out of
They-
there? or
They
just
do a lot
manufacture?
more than,
Yeah, they
you
produce
know,
and sell.
and I think they're expanding a little bit more and they're on the cusp of probably having a much larger presence in town. The
You
only
just-
egg one that really just came up in this last year was Chad helped get those folks out in the industrial park that are recycling the
Plastic.
those bags that look like
Yeah.
caterpillars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you mean. I kind of never thought about.
And you think about the little things that we don't have that are kind of convenience. I don't know how many small engine places Yorkville has, at least 2.
And Leroy Hilker's getting old. He would have been working my stuff.
I thought the old Dollar General store would have popped a ATV, UTV sales lot in there.
What's that? Mark?
Oh.
I
Old
thought
Dollar
somebody would
General?
have picked up that Dollar General store once the ATV, UTV got
It's
legalized in
expensive.
town. Somebody would have put a store in there.
There's
Repair
interest
shop.
in that building, but not at that price, and they won't.
Way too
But that's-
expensive.
So,
I mean, that's the other issue, you know, that is the market. People, what they're selling it for. I mean, that, I don't know if it's a city issue, but that's definitely an issue.
When you talk about the ag, I mean, we got Larson Co-op. I mean, that's a big ag presence in town. I mean, the hardware store there, and I just went there and bought a bunch of seed the other day. So I mean, grass seed.
Their office space and their seed business is, yeah, that's there, but I mean, their fertilizer and their seed or their receiving, obviously that's on a rail spur. We don't have that ish. You know, I mean, and the feed mill got built over in Wyega for a lot of different reasons, and that industry has changed so much that that thing is already outdated, and I don't know if it's 25 years old or not, but that's not an efficient operation anymore. So
Small engine repair, that's an interesting one. See what we can attract for small engine repair.
I could see an outfit coming in that maybe does that and the ATV, UTVs. And the folks with the club even said, you know, you wait within a year or two, you know, there might be something pop up in that order. I would probably say that's one of the most likely to bloom type businesses probably in the next couple of years. Be something that services those UTVs, ATVs.
Next time we're talking to the club, that'd probably be a good resource to piggyback, you know, see if there's anybody interested in
The co-op
either the
does small engine
sales
repair.
or the,
what's that?
like you said, the
Co-op
small
does Small
engine,
engine repair.
snow
I know that.
blowers, ATV sales, that type of stuff.
I seen Warhead was mulling
Larson,
around in
CHS.
Woodville, which is a
Offering full service,
Biggie.
small engine repair and maintenance.
situation, so.
What address?
One out on,
No.
yes.
April just said that Larson Co-op offers small engine repair out on S. I didn't know
Over here?
You
Okay.
should probably advertise that a little bit.
that. Yeah.
I didn't know it either.
I go in and out of there to get feed and seed and everything else, and I've never seen anything sitting around there, so I don't. It news to me.
I know a big topic at the high school is level or at the school district level is New London has a pretty extensive small engine repair program,
Mhm.
but there's a couple board members that are asking for that to be upgraded into auto. An auto section up there. And so they're gonna be surveying folks and asking interest about that and whether or not business community. I think Dan Plock was there last night at the board meeting and talking about upgrading that small engine into auto repair. And that could be one of those, you know, we've talked about career paths and stuff with the high school.
Mhm.
Some of those kids that they get through that, through their small engine program up there would be prime candidates to get a little startup, you know. It's like bicycles, you know. Every time I buy a bike, it gets, you know, I don't know if it's just the merchandise I buy. I go to Walmart and buy a $200 bike. Once it breaks down, I'm pretty much, you know, I'm buying a new bike. We used to have Bud Cycle, we had bicycle shops, but, you know,
Yeah.
as more people start, you invest in healthier things and healthier lifestyles, but how do you even fix it? If I got a flat tire on a bike, it gets packed up behind the shed and it basically sits there. Okay. You know, I don't even know how to change a bicycle tire. But, you know, there's another type of business that maybe some young entrepreneur out of high school can get himself a little niche in the old.
If we could help them out by giving them some space to start working in too.
I was gonna ask, what we were talking a couple meetings ago about checking with all the rental spaces in town, what they're charging for square foot and this and that. Has there been any update on that?
Yep, so Elena is still working on it. It's taking some time to get some emails, so she's found that just printing them and handing them out to business owners doesn't always get to the property owner, but that is working faster than trying to get emails. So it's in the process.
That would be another way to get people, hey, you can rent this space for $600 a month or whatever. That way,
I would-
you know,
I was surprised. I guess I forgot. I brought it up at the breakfast meeting last week, but there's been interest from two different parties in opening a breakfast restaurant in town, if you can believe that. And it was just weird because both parties, one local and one not so local, wanted this corner cafe over here, which I guess is already leased. And now I'm working with them. Bill, I might be over to see you at some point for a business loan. But people are still kind of thinking about it a little bit, so kind of surprised me. I mean, most service industry, you can't get any help at all. But yet they're still willing. One of them was a group of sisters, so the other one was an independent person, but that was surprising to me.
Are they looking for space yet? Or is that the hang up, or
What's that?
is the hang up looking for space? Is that
Yeah.
what they're,
Yeah.
What about the former Beacon Street?
I was just gonna say, what's,
That owner is not willing to lease or sell, I guess. They want to open that on their own. I checked with one of the other agents in our office and that's what she had told me. So if anybody can find anything out different, that'd be
I'll
great.
follow up with her.
I think one of the parties would like to lease and the other party would like to buy. So both options are open there.
Let's see what I can find out.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Hey, review the next meeting date.
next regular meeting, the 30th, November 30th.
I have a question. I know I'm not on this committee, but do you guys, would you be interested in starting at 5 instead of 4:30?
That's up to the committee.
If we're actually bringing that up and looking at talking about that, I've had interest of people, or not people interested in starting at 6 or 7. Just because of the work schedules. and
What was
stuff
that
like
here?
that. What's that? I've had interest of from people asking if the meetings could start later, like 6 or 7. I've talked with Dave about it before. I didn't know if that would help with people actually coming and getting involved. I don't know.
Well, they
It's
can.
hard to come to a committee meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon
But
for most
people have
people.
asked.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that they're still gonna attend.
I mean, I was lucky enough, my full-time job, I was out of work by 3:30, so I could always get here to a meeting, but for most people, they can't. It's probably why we don't have a lot of interest in council members and
I mean, that's up to you, and I would suggest 6. At the very earliest.
I know I repeatedly was showing up to Park and Recs
right on
5
time.
minutes late. And getting there, and finally I said, it's really tough unless I change my job, because Mondays we were still doing our own in-house delivery and that was a nightmare. Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays back then. Wednesdays are really tough because of those 3 really crunch days. So they made it 4:45, which helped. But back in the day, they were always at 5 or 5:30. And it just, the older the group got and everything, and people wanted to crunch it in earlier because it cranked into their dinner time or whatever. But I think as there's younger representation, 5 o'clock might be a real good compromise.
What I
between-
was looking at is businesses usually work until 5 on an average. At the latest, and that would be a shift change. That's why I thought 6 o'clock as a time. But with that said, if we're looking at moving it, I would like to look at talking to all the chairs and seeing if all the committees would start at the same time. Instead of this one at 4, this one's at 4:30, or this one's at 5:15. And
I would rather start them all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just easier.
so I like that talk. I mean, that's up to the chairs, and that's my 1 cent.
As the mayor, why don't you get the chairs together and
We can do that.
Yeah, have a meeting of your chairs and
We can do that.
or a committee of the whole, really, you'd want
we'd have to do a
everybody's
committee of the
input, the committee members too, not just the chairs, but probably.
So for this one, we're gonna leave at 4:30, or
We'll leave, I mean, you can make any change you want, but,
I would just leave it the same until we change all of them, I think. It
we
just,
can,
I'm show up early for the park and rec every month because I can't remember it's at 4:45.
Yep.
So I'm usually sitting here by 4:15.
the same thing.
Just do.
so I'll work with Chad and we'll get that meeting put together.
And you got planning commission at 5. Well,
And then
everything changes. I just,
Council's at 7.
I wouldn't be opposed to going 7 o'clock for everything.
I think
That's
7
kinda
o'clock.
late.
That's a little.
That's kind of,
late.
I have a
6.
family. I want to be.
Well, and then
home.
we have people traveling to come here. I think
Yeah.
that's getting a little late myself too.
And I think in the past administration, there was probably, the reason they didn't want to get too late is because if you have actual city staff that have to be like
Yep.
Nicole or anybody that has to be. So, yeah, there's a compromise in there somewhere. I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, discuss it.
I think in general migration, we'll see more people Skype and, doing some remote. We're seeing it within our organization. So I wouldn't doubt as if that's, coming to a physical gathering is getting much more rare in industry now. I'm surprised we didn't have more people. I guess I don't know, but it doesn't, do we have anybody on?
Steve's on.
Is that invited to the public to hop on Zoom, or do they have to come in person?
See, the reason we use the webinar feature, there's one attendee, so there's one person that called in. But we do that so that there was problem with municipalities getting Zoom bombed. So
Mhm.
people from Texas were logging in and then just disrupting a meeting. So the way we have it set up here is the panelists, you guys get special emails that say that panel, you're invited as a panelist. That gets you into the meeting to be able to talk. Whereas the agenda link, the link that's on top of the agenda, they, as an attendee, can listen or watch us, but they can't Zoom bomb us and interrupt the meeting. So that was getting to be a big thing when COVID started. They were getting Zoom bombed from other states, and
Mhm.
this was a way to kind of separate that.
And kind of to your point, Bill, the League of Municipalities just, I think it was in the last month or two, had a, if you get that, had an article in there about there's a fine line when, when you're able to, if you're on a committee or elected, when you're able to zooming, kind of post, even though we're not really post-pandemic yet. But if you're able to, it's very highly encouraged to be attending in person. And there are there's questions being arose about kind of like, if, say, for example, tonight, I didn't feel like cleaning up and putting my good hat and my good sweatshirt on. I could have just zoomed in. No, but you want to encourage in-person attendance at these meetings, especially public meetings.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the way of the future may be going Zoom for companies and stuff post-pandemic, but I think publicly, the league is saying that you should be trying your best to be.
Yeah, you don't
attending.
see as much discussion if someone's on Zoom. I see in all
Yeah.
my meetings,
Yep.
people on Zoom are much more quiet
Yep.
and less engaged in conversation.
It's hard. I do it a lot. So, I mean, it's hard to interrupt
Mhm,
and start a conversation that way, because by the time you speak, there's another conversation going on.
mhm.
Or you get a guy like me. I mean, I'm sure the few meetings that I zoomed in on during the pandemic, I was like, okay, Mark, well, guys, and over talking and whatnot.
But this has given us a really good way of being transparent. Obviously, when there's one person calling in, we're broadcasting to YouTube right now. People are looking at that. It's given us a really easy way to give people the opportunity to view what's going on and keep up with, what's going on with
Oh,
the city.
Absolutely. The
So-
folks that watch just the recorded meetings,
And if you go back, there might not be a ton of people watching it live. Usually I kind of look at that. It's usually a couple, but you go back to YouTube and watch the replays, there's anywhere between 20 and 50 people watching those, watching the meeting later on. with
Oh, yeah, I had
reviews,
people
so-
comment to
I
me
was just
about
gonna
it.
say, yeah, I get comments all the time about it.
I think that aspect is fantastic.
We digress. This isn't really on the agenda for discussion, I guess, so. To keep the meeting going.
I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion made, second to adjourn.